So back in 2020, I, Steven Shinder, started a podcast called Delayed Replay, recapping and reviewing the latest films. However, it got broadcast into an alternate universe where those films got delayed and came out differently from how I was describing them. Because of how me and my guests had been describing the films, people in that other universe were saying that this was all an improvised comedy podcast, which, listening back, I can totally get why they believe that. A lot of weird stuff happened in that first year, and I even met my other self from that other universe, who pops in from time to time, for better or worse. And now, in the year 2023, this podcast continues, still recapping and reviewing movies and sometimes some other things that got delayed or cancelled in that other universe. A new episode Saturdays every other week, unless I decide otherwise for some special reason or whatever. You are listening to Delayed Replay, Season 4.
Hashtag Sawtember. Hey everyone, this is Steven Shinder. Before we begin the Madam Web episode, just I'll give a quick spoiler-free review of Saw X or Saw 10. I've heard it both ways, to quote Psych. But yeah, no spoilers. I'll include a more detailed review at the end of the next episode. Perhaps beginning with non-spoiler general things and then delving into the spoilers. But for now, my quick reaction is that this is the best Saw movie since the original. It's the best Saw sequel. It actually takes place between Saw 1 and Saw 2, but they reference a couple things that are revealed later in the series. So if you're new to Saw, I would recommend at least watching up to the fourth one before going into this one. But even if you don't, it still doesn't spoil the bigger twists of those films, if that makes sense. But yeah, this 10th film really impressed me. Tobin Bell, great performance. They're really lucky to have cast him in the original way back in the day, and he's still doing such a great job 20 years later. It's very much more focused on him, and they nailed it. They like really did a service to the franchise. They walked a fine line between telling a compelling drama and showcasing the traps, because I feel like people think the series is all about the traps, and to be fair, lots of the movies put those up front, and it kind of muddles some of the deeper things that are in the movies. But yeah, John Kramer, you see why he's my favorite horror villain. And yeah, go see Saw X. Also, this is Steven from that other universe, by the way. I probably should have led with that so it's not confusing. But yeah, it gets a high rec for me. 9 out of 10 Billy the Jigsaw puppets, I guess I would say. And yeah, I'll go into more detail at the end of the next episode. But for now, let's get to a Delayed Replay universe, Steven, for the discussion on Madam Web of that universe. Without further delay, enjoy the show. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, Steven Shinder, and joining me once again for this Madam Web episode, it is Camille. How's it going?
Hey, Steven, thanks so much for having me again. It's going great. Love talking comics with you.
Yeah, I see, the listeners won't be able to see any of this, but what's that as your background on Zoom right now? I see Spider-Man, and is that Taylor Swift as well, or?
It is indeed.
Okay.
I don't know if I can swear on this, but it is Spider-Man telling Taylor, "Do you see this, Taylor Swift? Like, do you see this nonsense?"
Okay.
It gives me comfort in times of distress.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you swear, I'll just bleep or mute it, and
Okay.
yeah, no worries on that front. Um, but yeah, I guess to get started, had you seen any Madam Web content before this movie?
Not a single thing. Um, like I guess the closest would be like a spider and a woman would be like I've read a couple of Silk comics, which is not like super related, but not no, not at all.
Right. Yeah, and before, well, in our universe, like she appears a bit in the most recent Spider-Verse movie, a version of her anyway, and then we get a glimpse of like this one. But before any of that, like pretty much the only thing I remember seeing that's Madam Web related was like she appears in the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon, and she's played by or Joan Lee's Stan Lee's wife.
Oh,
And yeah, like seeing her powers, and um like she even meets Stanley when Spider-Man goes into the real world or whatever. It was really weird, but yeah.
that's
um
kind of sweet though.
yeah. So like what's really different about how Madam Web is usually portrayed is she's like, from what I understand, she's, I guess, supposed to be a mutant, but also is like blind and clairvoyant. And of course, she looks much older, like she's an old woman, basically. And but in this version, it's kind of an origin story. Dakota Johnson plays like a younger version, and they kind of take away some of the stuff that would I guess they thought would have been complicated, like the mutant angle, and like she's clairvoyant basically, and she's not blind like right away. So it really gets like when you start the movie, you really start to wonder, huh, when will any of this other stuff ever happen to her, or is this just like its own universe, you know?
Yeah, that's funny. I didn't know she was a mutant in the comics. That's kind of funny because Miss Marvel has recently become mutant in the comics instead of inhuman, and people aren't thrilled with that. So it's kind of funny they switched teams.
Yeah, there's kind of been a weird flip-flop relationship with Marvel and like the mutants and Inhumans over the years. It's kind of ridiculous.
Because of differing copyrights and trying to avoid copyright violations.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's all Marvel's fault for selling the rights all those years ago. They should have just gone bankrupt instead.
Yeah, it is pretty wild that I mean this is part of Sony's Spider cinematic universe, and I have consumed a lot of Spider content that we're at this point. This was I feel like this was a much better, much stronger showing than the previous two.
Yeah, like this one, it kind of feels like it's its own universe in like the Spider-Man multiverse because it doesn't really try to connect to those other things so much. Like
There's
Ven-
there's one shoehorned moment. You gotta it
yeah.
was like pretty
Yeah.
forced.
Yeah, there is. But also like the era feels, you kind of start questioning like when is this set? Like and which universe is this? But yeah, we'll get to all that. Yeah, what'd you think of the explanation they gave for why this version of Madame Web has become clairvoyant?
Um, I so I the reason I'm going back and forth on it is because it's like it kind of reminds me a little bit too much of That's a Raven, but at the same time, I did enjoy it. I felt like it wasn't as heavy-handed as some of the other stuff. And then also, like, come on, this is a universe where the main character is bit by a spider and then gets powers. Like, you know what? Getting psychic abilities, sure.
Right. I mean, that's so Raven. Like I grew up with that. It's class.
Amazing. So good.
Yeah, I actually think the spin-off Raven's Home is actually pretty good. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and even like after they changed the setting and the cast in like season 5 or whatever, I still managed to like really enjoy the show. But yeah, that's a whole tangent right there. Um and yeah, also I thought it was kind of weird that in this version Cassandra Webb, becomes Madam Webb, works at a Chase bank. Like, I thought that was like a weird angle that they threw in there.
It was kind of similar to like Haunted Mansion this year of like the weird product placement. Like obviously you're gonna expect like Sony like headphones and like a gratuitous PS5 in a
Right.
movie that's Sony. Even though the other elements are pretty timeless. But yeah, the chase stuff was a little weird.
Like, it almost made it feel like, I know that this is supposed to look grounded in some places, but it almost made it feel too grounded to me. It's like I would have rather they just made up a different bank, but
Mm. That reminds me of the Amazing Spider-Man's like the Bing search he would use. Did he use Bing or like a knockoff or Bing of Bing? I can't
Did
remember.
he? Yeah, it hasn't been that long since I've seen it, but like, yeah, I don't remember.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember watching it in the theater and going, "That man isn't using Google. Now why is he not?" And now I'm like, I use DuckDuckGo and stuff, so I get it now. He was just a deeply paranoid teenager.
Yeah, I remember back in high school, I would occasionally search on Bing, but just because I really liked the like background image on the homepage, they always looked really nice.
Yeah, it does. It did always look really nice.
Yeah, in fact, let me see what the background image is right now, like for today.
I
See.
used to have like if you would look stuff up on Bing, they would give you Bing, they would give you points, and then you could like exchange it for gift cards if you did it enough. They're like, please use our search engine.
Yeah, like I see right here, there's like a rewards section in the corner.
Yeah, yeah,
And like the background image is like two horses or two stallions or something.
yeah.
So that's pretty neat. Um, yeah, we're not sponsored by Microsoft, unfortunately. So,
Yet, gotta
yet.
shoot for the stars.
Yeah. But we also get other characters in this. Like, we get Sydney Sweeney as Julia Carpenter, who becomes Spider Woman. And we also get Isabella Merced, who is Anya Corazon and becomes Araña. So,
To figure out why Isabella looked familiar, and then after I got out of the movie and checked IMDb and realized that she was Dora the Explorer, I was like, wow, this explains
oh,
so much.
that's why she looks so familiar.
Yeah, I thought you did a really good job.
Yeah, and like the Dora movie, I have a friend who is like put off by the breaking the fourth wall in the beginning, but I'm like, no, that's just in the beginning. The rest is actually kind of decent.
I have not seen it, but like I've like seen the trailers and stuff because obviously it went around. So I was just like, how is she older now? But I thought she did a really good job of being the like girl in the chair and sort of like their like tech troubleshooting support.
Yeah, and she's definitely like she's the youngest of the three, and I kind of feel like this was kind of, I remember some years ago there were some rumors that there was going to be like a female-led Spider-Man spin-off. I don't remember if that was pre-MCU collab or if it was after, but I kind of wonder if maybe this was kind of a rework of that idea. What do you think?
Yeah, that makes sense. Considering, you have Dakota Johnson as a spider person, also Sydney Sweeney as a Spider Woman. I was actually surprised because the writers of this movie were the ones that wrote Morbius, and I was like, I don't know, going in, I was like, I don't know about this. But I thought that the directing was really good, and it it was having a good time. It was having a good time with the script. everyone was just like how like the actors came and they were ready to like have spider fun. I feel like sometimes it almost feels like for some actors it feels like they're on jury duty when they're or like they're being or like the Canadians and they're like being called up to be in Degrassi or they're like, all right, I'm doing Marvel now. But I felt like everyone was like excited to be in this movie and had like a fun time and did not have to do like crazy workout diets. So that was cool.
It's kind of off-putting that to me that I mean this is kind of a fault of like older comics how superheroes are shown to be like really buff and whatever, but stuff like the MCU will have like the actors have to work out and look a certain way. Whereas in the X-Men movies, for all their flaws, like some of those characters like didn't really work out at all. Like the actors didn't, so those actors didn't work out, and it's like you can, like you don't have to just work out super hard to be these characters, you know?
I mean, especially for something like a spider person, because like he like Spider-Man specifically is like a very like athletic like person. It's a gymnast body. It's not like a muscle building body. So it makes sense that you gotta like work out a bit, but there's like especially Eternals really annoyed me because I felt like everyone in that cast just like had to work out like super hard and it's like but you don't they're like these godlike beings. They don't need to be like super muscular.
Like if you have super strength, like it's already a fantasy. You don't have to show that the characters are like super buff or whatever. They could just be, oh, their powers
Right.
allow them to look normal, but still lift a truck or whatever, you know?
I mean, I did not question at all that Tobey Maguire had webs shooting out of his like
His
arms,
wrist. Yeah.
his wrists. Thank you. And then I was when we got to the other ones with Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland, I was like, why is the nuts shooting out of their wrist? And then eventually I was like, oh wait, no, that was kind of weird that like web fluid was coming out of his wrist. I kind of get it now.
Yeah, like as a kid, I didn't question it either because it's like, oh, if you are a Spider-Man, the spider powers would be so innate within you. And then later, I found out about like the web shooters, and it's like, oh, okay, that's okay, whatever. Um, but yeah, and here, the way that Julia Carpenter, Spider Woman, gets her powers, she's kind of tricked into being part of these experiments by this shady organization called the Commission. And they put like, they inject her with like something called spider venom. And like, that's how she gets her powers. And so she has like these spider powers. And yeah, what did you think of her storyline and how her actress like portrayed the character?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a good tie-in because Miles Morales' powers are spider venom, so I thought that was a good tie-in that he for the power set wise. I thought Sydney Sweeney did a really good job. I've obviously seen her on Euphoria, and it was nice to see her with a different director, getting to have like a bit more fun. I thought she was surprisingly really funny. It was interesting that she and Dakota Johnson's character, Madam Web, kind of started off as frenemies. At first, I was like, "Must we? Must we like have frenemies? Is this 2001? Am I
Yeah,
watching a very terrible rom-com?" But I thought it was a good way to show the fact that sometimes teaming up and learning to work with other people and to rely on other people because I don't know if they went 100% all the way there that I was hoping for the kind of the metaphor of the movie. But I thought there were some good parallels to the fact that like Madam Web's clairvoyant and kind of like everything everywhere, where it's like we just have so much information going on all at once, and it's just there's so many things, and how do you focus on what's important and what's really going to matter and what's really going to help people. And you need someone outside of that, which would be Sydney Sweetie in this case, to help you make change or to focus on what's really important to you. So I liked the parts they did hit on that.
Yeah, with that whole frenemies at first thing, you just reminded me. Recently, I started watching the live action One Piece, and I don't
How
know
is
if,
that? I've been thinking about watching it.
yeah, I've never seen the anime, but since my roommate's little brother started watching it, we were all like watching it together in the living room the other day, and it's the first two episodes are what I've seen so far, and I thought it was pretty decent, but it starts out with that whole frenemies trope, like the people who will, they'll become a team, start out like hating each other, but they're forced to like work together on this first mission thing, very much the beginning of a D&D campaign.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I'm like, I'm kind of tired of the frenemies thing. Like, I kind of wish
Yeah.
they could characters could just be friends at first sight already. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think there are other ways to show a friendship progressing besides this. But Dakota Johnson and Sydney Sweetie are just like so charming and likable that like, and also Sydney Sweetie is very good at playing like kind of like a catty person. So, but watching them overcome that and really come to like rely and trust on each other was like a nice, it was like it's kind of a tired character arc, but it was a nice character arc.
Yeah, and with a clairvoyant angle throughout the movie, Cassandra Webb, you kind of hears voices from across the Spider Verse. So we hear like some familiar dialogue from the Spider Verse movies. We also hear from like, and she can also like get glimpses of the future. So there's dialogue from various movies, and also like she gets a glimpse of what her future self could potentially look like, and it looks like the comic book accurate Madam Web. So it kind of feels like that she's on a path to become that, but this is like very, very early on, and she's wondering, "Whoa, am I gonna become blind? What's gonna happen?" And it's like, she's really going through an existential crisis now.
Yeah, I mean that it is definitely not a power I would want because it seems super overwhelming. So I think they did a good job of that and how much it just comes out of nowhere and stuff. Also, can I say that I'm very glad they did not do the Spider-Man pointing meme. As much as I love the meme, it's like at a certain point we have to be a little restrained here.
Yeah, they showed a bit more restraint here. But did you want to talk about the thing that was shoehorned into this?
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
you seem very unexcited to talk about it.
It's just well, because I had to look it up, and then when I did, I was mad because I was like, who is that person, and why are they talking to Matt Smith? And why is like I know why Matt Smith is here, but also why is Matt Smith here? So I'm just glad Jared Leto wasn't here because I don't love Jared Leto.
Right.
But um, so like it's just like this weird scene where they're like at this truck stop because they've like Sydney Sweetie kind of is like they have like the act two where they've like gotten closer, but then they're like, you know what, I'm gonna go do my own thing. Dakota Johnson's like, I'm gonna go like drive to New Jersey to see my family out of state, and like maybe I'll like find myself like a mini like eat pray love situation. And then like we see them uh and it's like a very out of place like thing for their characters from what I know. It, do you know if this is like a normal place for them to be?
Yeah, I don't know. I was very confused about that part. And like with Matt Smith, the scene itself is pretty surreal. Like they make it so that with the like psychic abilities and stuff across space and time, it's like, is he like literally here, or is this a conversation across time and space? And
Uh,
I
that makes
feel,
more sense.
yeah, and I feel like they're keeping it ambiguous at the moment, and I don't know if it's because they want to keep it a mystery or if they just don't know what they're doing right now.
That makes sense though, because she's like talking to him through like the one of the like refrigerator mirrors, like the glass door. So like
Yeah,
maybe that's it was just like another like time or dimension or something. So that makes a lot more sense.
yeah, maybe. And this might be a controversial opinion, but I feel like Matt Smith, his best acting is in Doctor Who, and anything else I've seen him outside of that hasn't impressed me very much, really, unfortunately.
I've seen him in Doctor Who. I've not seen the Game of Thrones prequel because I watched Game of Thrones with my parents. The first season that scarred me for life.
Oh yeah, I've only seen the first season, and I kind of got bored by it and didn't continue. So,
It's just so much and it's so long.
we also have Adam Scott and Emma
Okay,
Roberts who play familiar characters. But sorry, what were you gonna say?
okay, so this twist like kind of got a little spoiled for me, so I was like a little bummed, but I still thought they did a really good job bringing it in because it's like they're not like too heavy-handed with it, but the twist that Adam Scott is Uncle Ben
Yeah.
is very cool.
Yeah, and what's funny is they say, "Oh, this is like a younger Uncle Ben," but like Adam Scott is like around 50 right now. Like I know
Really?
we, yeah, like I know we think of him as not being that old, but it's just kind of funny. But then again, Uncle Ben traditionally looks a lot older, like 70 or something
Yeah,
for
they
some reason.
always seem like more grandparent age. Man, he does not look like he's in his 50s. Good for him.
Yeah, and Emma Roberts, of course, her character is pregnant, and we basically find out that I guess this is supposed to be Peter Parker's mom, and it kind of
Yeah,
made me wonder, like, are they feeding into the meme of like, oh, the next Spider-Man reboot is gonna be a baby Peter Parker, because like the whole thing of the Peter Parker actors getting younger and younger.
they really are. Tom Holland's our age. Um, but it was nice because we really don't get to see that much about Peter Parker's parents. I think the Amazing Spider-Man, they're like maybe spies or something.
Yeah,
So it was nice to have like a bit more of a human connection with them, but I don't think it really took away from Madam Web and like her characters and stuff. But I will say now, I like will be a bit more sad about Uncle Ben dying because now I will be thinking of Adam Scott.
yeah.
Because usually it's just like, yeah, I know you're gonna die.
Yeah,
It's
usually it's like really funny when he dies, right? No, I'm kidding. No, but yeah, we had so much time with Adam Scott here that it's, he really felt more like, I don't know, like when I've in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, I feel like was my favorite portrayal of Uncle Ben, and like he had a lot of wise words, and I feel like I got enough of him before he died, so that I was sad enough when he passed. With the Martin Sheen version, I think
What?
that's who played him. It felt,
Martin Sheen played in The Amazing Spider-Man? What? I'm
yeah,
learning so much today.
yeah. Like it felt like, I don't know, like they were trying to make him sound wise, but it also felt like they were tiptoeing around trying not to make him say the same thing, so it was kind of weird. Yeah, I thought Adam Scott felt, he was kind of like not as old, but still had, he's very down to earth and had words of wisdom. So like there's a scene where the characters like meet him by chance, and he has like they have like a nice heart to heart, because like, there are like various enemy agents trying to like go after these protagonists, and he says the thing, he says, with great power comes great responsibility, and like the theater cheered when when it got to that part when I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, like it felt kind of earned, but also kind of like best we.
I mean, it's not as bad as a Spider-Man pointing thing, right?
Not totally fair. Not totally fair.
Right. So yeah, and there are like some things in the movie where it kind of hints that in this version, the Peter Parker who's gonna be born, who's gonna be a baby, like it's kind of implied that his abilities are due to these spider venom experiments that are
Mm.
happening in the movie. So I feel like if this was like the first Spider-Man related movie, I would be like really mad about it. But now we're at a point where it's like, oh, there's like multiple Spider-Man universes. Like, who cares, you know?
Let's switch up the backstory, like, because we all know the backstory. Let's have some fun here.
Right. So, was what else did you want to go over? Like, what'd you think of the third act of this movie? Like, how things sort of came to a head.
I thought that so I'm kind of tired of like punch. I mean, obviously it's a superhero movie, but like I thought the way that they filmed the end fight scene was really cool because when you're like a psychic, being clairvoyant, it's probably like helpful and also like a hindrance when you're trying to fight because you're not sure what's happening now or in the future. So I thought the way that she came together with Spider-Woman to save to win the fight was really cool, and I liked the way that the director had visualized the things happening in the future and like the way it was kind of like messing with her mind. What did you think of the villain?
Um, yeah, I thought it was kind of lackluster that
Mm.
for the villain in this movie, like, it all goes back to the experiments that they run at the commission. And, we have these cool things happening. Like we said, Anya has like this exoskeleton. And I know people were mad that
Mhm.
instead of a magic ritual that gives her powers, they sort of streamline it so that these experiments gives her powers as well. And you got the psychic abilities among the other protagonists, but um, yeah, I thought that the whole thing of like, one of the person in charge of the commission just injects herself with like all these syringes of spider venom that each have like a different variation to them. And it's like she gets like super OP, becomes a giant spider person, and kind of looks like a mix of different types of spiders, like daddy long legs, or a tarantula even, and like those those ones that like hop like great distances. It was kind of gross to look at, honestly.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was kind of like a good reminder that Sony isn't playing by the MCU rules, so they can go like a little like grosser, a little weirder. Um, because I haven't seen Multiverse of Madness, but I did hear that things got like kind of sanded down a little bit, so it was nice to see them go for like bigger stuff.
Yeah, but the fight itself felt like, it had like third act problems that superhero movies tend to have. But I did love the synergy between our protagonists here and seeing them work together. Although of course I know that people who are like more familiar with the comics are like upset that they're not more like their counterparts. And like, some people are arguing, oh, but this is their origin story, maybe that'll happen later. But it's like with these movies, it's like, who knows? Like, I don't know, like, if it made enough to like
Yeah,
warrant
that
a
was
whole series. Like, I don't know, because it was a huge weekend when this came out.
Yeah, that is definitely like a big gamble, like especially because now people are getting a little like superhero fatigue to like have it be an origin story. But I thought it was different enough from the other Spider-Man movies that I was like, you know what? This is not a origin story I've seen a million times.
Right. And I do think it's one of the better Spider-Man spin-off movies that aren't like focused around Spider-Man or the Spider-Man themselves, I guess you could
Mhm.
say. Although I guess
Well,
technically this has a Spider-Woman, so it kind of feels like a mix between, but yeah, it's definitely better than like, you know, Morbius, obviously,
the
Craven.
bar is on the floor.
um But yeah, was there anything else you want to talk about, or should we talk about like the post-credit stuff?
I thought the soundtrack was interesting because I wasn't sure what they'd go for, especially for more of like a timeless sort of thing. So I thought what they ended up choosing was really fun. What did you think?
Yeah, it felt very gothic, like almost Hans Zimmer-esque, but not quite. Well, it kind of felt like a mix of gothic and classic orchestral movie score. They were kind of hopping between, and I feel like it gave it this sort of jumpy quality, which I guess kind of fits the story. Um, like there were definitely themes here and there that were memorable, but I feel like some of it I would need to listen to again in order to like really refresh myself on like how it sounds.
Yeah, I did like occasionally for some of like the like time and like space flashes that like for like the 2001 or like the 2005, I can't remember when that there was Toxic playing and I was like, okay, I do appreciate this. I know this is overused, but it makes me happy.
Yeah. Also, during that final fight, there was the moment where Cassandra like just narrowly avoids getting stabbed in her eyes by like the spider legs, and I'm like, oh, has she narrowly avoided that future where she's blind, or does that happen some other way somewhere down the road? So yeah, I guess that's another like little mystery they've sort of thrown in the thing.
Yeah, it's cool. I think it's like a very like you can't fight fate thing that we'll probably see pop up more in the other ones if the sequels are made.
Right. I guess it kind of also avoids that problem that some people have of like origin stories shoving in all the things you'd expect from a character's origin.
Looking at you, Solo.
Yeah, like I knew, like, so I really enjoy Solo. It's a fun movie, but I do agree that like it would have worked better as a series so that over time like all the things could have happened and some of the characters stuff could have been fleshed out more. Like you would have got to more time with some of these other side characters. And like on the other end of the spectrum, I think I've told you this before, I feel like the Obi-Wan Kenobi series definitely would have worked better as a movie.
I can't believe we've come to a point where the like I do not there are live action Star Wars shows and I do not want to see them, but unfortunately, Stephen, we are at this point
Yeah,
because
and apparently there's a question of whether the Lando project will be a series or a movie, which I don't know. Not knowing the intended story, I don't know which medium is preferable, so it's like I don't know.
I mean, at this point, I'm not even sure if they're going to go through with it, which they should, because Donald Glover was like one of the strongest parts about Solo, and he was so good.
Right.
Star
But
Wars.
right, but getting back to Madam Web. So, did you want to talk about the post-credit scenes, or was there anything else you wanted to touch on first?
No, let's get into the post-credit scenes. I will admit I don't get the larger universe significance as much. So, and I did not look those up, so I will need some help on those ones.
Right. So we see like Cassandra and Julia, they're using their psychic powers, and so they get glimpses of
Yeah.
things. Like there's Noel, who's like a symbiote villain, which I guess that's a tease for the third Venom movie. And
No. I thought there was only one reference, and it's just Morbius. If you're gonna have a Venom setup, where is Tom Hardy? I want Tom Hardy.
yeah, that like it's so quick, and they make Noel look so obscure. That's like, I kind of wish they'd spend a little more time on that. But and then there's also a glimpse of Julia Carpenter, Spider-Woman in her classic costume from her first appearance in Secret Wars. Like they get a glimpse of her future. Like apparently she'll end up on Battle World in the Secret Wars movie. So that was like a Easter egg that made some people just like a few people in the theater clap because like they were like in the know and everyone was like, "What the hell is up with you?"
But the typical Marvel experience, I thought the costume was really well done. It was like
Yeah,
similar to
surprisingly so. Yeah.
Far From Home, where like you just see it for a brief minute, and you're like, no, bring back that costume. It looked good.
Yeah, and there's also like a
Wait, sorry,
glimpse.
I have to correct myself. No Way Home, not Far From Home.
Okay.
The last
Yeah, and there's also a glimpse of a world where the Amazing Spider-Man movies are movies, and there's the director Mark Webb, and apparently this is how Cassandra Webb decides to call herself Madam Webb, which I thought was really stupid.
comics, comics. So it is like a little crime worthy, but we've also read some stuff. We have both read Dick Grayson dying by a rock. So,
Yeah. Also, like, just as a side tangent, I think it's really frustrating how similar, like, all the Robins look in the comics. So,
yeah.
like, if they're all standing next to each other and wearing regular clothes as opposed to their costumes, it's like, it's hard to tell who is who, and that's so frustrating.
Especially because different artists will have different ideas of their heights and like who has what hair, especially because it used to be like Jason would have like the curly hair, but I feel like curly hair is kind of popular right now. So I'm like worried they're gonna like try to give it to some of the other Robins. It's when I feel like Bruce just adopts a bunch of black-haired, blue-eyed children, at least at the start, so it becomes very hard to distinguish between all of them, especially
Yeah.
if the character writing is not good, and it's like, who are you?
Yeah, it's like at least change the hair a lot. Like, I don't know, make Jason like blonde or something.
He
Make
was. He
oh,
was
oh, was he?
pre-Crisis. Like
Okay.
before the first one, he was blonde, and then he Bruce made him dye his hair. Probably so like for continuity purposes, so people wouldn't be like, "Why is that Robin blonde?" But
Gosh, that sounds like a comic book nitpick thing right there. Like
but it
comic book
also
reader
seems
nitpick.
it seems like
Um,
something that would like cause like a lot of like resentment and stuff on Jason's side. So it's actually like it's kind of an interesting thing, and they brought it back for under the not under the hood. I think Batman Rest in Peace, the one where like Jason wore like the helmet that is very unfortunately shaped the Red Hood helmet, and he's
oh
like
yeah.
ginger. That one.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah, I know, like I was thinking about this, how the Titans TV show, for all its flaws, I did think it was interesting that as Tim Drake, and like the Tim Burton Batman movies in the 90s would have had an African American Robin. So it's like the comics could have had like a black Tim Drake if they wanted to originally, and then Damian Wayne make his Middle Eastern heritage look more up front instead of making him look like the generic Robin look.
Yeah, I mean, he should not look white, and it's always like weird and disappointing when he does.
I don't remember how he got here, but yeah.
Well, so there's two scenes. That was the first one, and then the second one was just more of like a comedy one of that bit from like the beginning of the movie where she like, she has that like Isabel has that rubber duck because it's like a common like programming joke where you're like debugging something by talking to a rubber duck, and she kind of like throws it somewhere, and so at the end Madam Web picks it up, and then like she like gets this like clairvoyant thing of like this like these like duck wars and stuff. That's kind of like a parody of like how like the MCU has become, and so that was like a fun, like cute little funny thing to have in addition to the more larger universe post credit scene.
Yeah, like when I saw that part, like I didn't know about like the debugging like inside joke thing, but I did wonder like are they trying to make fun of like Howard the Duck or something? Like what's going on here? Yeah, so overall, what are your final thoughts on this movie and what's your score out of 10 and do you know of measurement for the score?
Okay. So I thought it was a fun time. It was a fun time. I was like coming in like a little nervous because I made the mistake of looking up the writers first, and I was like, not the Morbius guys. Why? But I had like a good, enjoyable time. Like some parts of the script felt like the frenemy stuff that we talked about, and like the third act fight scene felt like we should be beyond this by now. It's 2023, but I thought it was like the the actors elevated the material, and that it was just like a fun Spidey time.
Yeah, so what's your score out of 10 for it and you know of measurement for that score?
I would give it a 7. Unexpected, seven. Surprise Peter Parker Family Universe cameos out of 10. We got two
Yeah.
more than I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean there is that moment where she tries communicating with baby Peter telepathically and being like, "This boy's gonna do so many great things." It's like, okay, I see you, movie. um, but yeah, I was considering, like, I was thinking to myself, is this a 7 or a 7.5? But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, there are fun moments in this movie. Like, I do think with the material that they were given, these actresses did a really great job, but there are still those third act problems, and
Yeah.
it's better than uh some of the other Sony outings. Um overall it was just fine. Like some parts felt generic, other parts were really cool, but overall, yeah, 7 out of 10 rubber duckies, I think I'm gonna give it.
That was beautiful. But, grading on the Sony Spider-Man curve, obviously the Spider-Verse is excluded. The Spider-Verses are in another level for we're talking about live action Spideyverse. Considering it was not awful or so bad that everyone is having a fun time, like
Right, yeah. It's like valedictorian of summer school. But anyway, yeah, I guess that'll do it. Thanks for joining me again, Camille. Do you have like any social media you want to plug or
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So no social media besides I think last time I was here for Blade, I mentioned it.
Mo Lady
Uh,
Gaga?
the Lady Gaga, we have not we were just talking about this before we started recording, but we have not done a show since the beginning of the year, but fingers crossed, hopefully some of our members will get freed up in time and we'll be able to perform because I love the improv and it'll be really fun to be on stage. So please follow us so you can see see me and my very talented friends perform together because it's a blast.
Nice.
And I do have a non-social media event. So I have joined a team
A
for
superhero team?
I mean, I think in a sense, not what I'm doing is important, but just like what the goal of this event. It's a suicide prevention walk called
Mm,
Out of the Darkness. And it's the Greater LA Pasadena Walk. So that's going to be November 4th. So
okay.
uh, anyone who listens to this is welcome to message me and get information to join my team or to donate. I'm looking forward to this. We're raising money to help this really great charity, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, and this episode will be coming out a little more than a month before that, so that's plenty of time. So, yeah, thanks for that. I'll put my plugs in the edit like I do these days, but yeah, thanks again for being on this episode, Camille.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so people can follow me at Steven Shinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook, also threads at Steven Shinder there. You can find me on Letterboxd, Goodreads. I have a couple books under the Standalones and Stepping Stones series title. First one is Lemons with My Grain. Second one is Trespassing Through the Visages. So lots of fun comedy, horror, fantasy, sci-fi stuff. They're on Amazon. You can also go to stevenshinder.com. And you can email this podcast via delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on spiders, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. Spider legs, the whole cultural image of a spider. I don't know. And you can also find me on a podcast and vlog that I do with my dad called Yesshift, where we talk about the band Yes and interview people related to the band. We recently interviewed Trevor Rabin, a former guitarist of Yes, also a film composer. He's got a new album coming out, a solo album titled Rio. Comes out October 6th. The first three singles that came out of that are amazing. We're looking forward to that. It was a great conversation. And the same day this comes out, you can also hear me and my dad talking to Kevin Mulrine from Yes Music podcast and author of Yes, the Tormato Story. So that's a book about one of Yes's more contentious albums from the 70s, and the book has kind of led some people to reevaluate the album, which is interesting. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. For now, at least. Yeah, and without further delay, have a good day.